Group 1 in our presentation today will be on the verses Mark 4:35 through 41. In this presentation, we will discuss the key details of these verses, the class units that relate to the verses and which units are most prominent, each group member's personal philosophy of healthcare and how each relate to the verses, as well as explaining how specific class resources can be referenced in relation to Mark 4:35 through 41. The group members presenting this presentation will be Caitlin, Samantha, and Nicholas.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Baggett, and for this evening we'll be looking at the details of Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 41. The setting takes place in the evening on the Sea of the Galilee Sea. Jesus and his disciples are traveling by boat when a violent storm suddenly hits. The waves are crashing over the boat and the disciples are terrified. Thinking they're about to drown, meanwhile, Jesus is asleep on his cushion, completely calm about the situation. The disciples, waking him up, asks, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Jesus then stood up, rebukes the winds, and says to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Immediately, the storm stops, and a great calm sets in. This evening shows Jesus' authority over nature and his divine power. The themes here are also powerful. Faith versus fear, trusting in God during the trials, and a reminder that Jesus has control even when chaos surrounds him. The story challenges us to reflect on how we ourselves respond to fear, and whether or not we trust God to bring peace in our own personal storms. Now let us connect this story to the themes we have been exploring in this class. First, we have courageous vulnerability. The disciples openly expressed their fear. They did not hide it. This vulnerability created a space for growth when Jesus responded to them. Next is collaboration. Everybody is in the same boat, quite literally, and it takes collective faith and shared action to face the crisis. Then there's leadership. Jesus didn't panic. He led with calm strength, showing true leadership isn't about control, but trust and presence in hard times. Lastly, we have uncommon compassion. Despite their fears and doubts, Jesus didn't scold his disciples for lack of faith. He showed mercy and stilled the storm, a clear action of divine compassion. Altogether, this passage teaches that trials can reveal and shape our courage, teamwork, and ability to lead and show compassion in the face of fear.
My name is Caitlin Storch, and I will be presenting leadership, which is one of the most prominent class units relating to Mark 4:35 through 41. Later in this presentation, I will also be presenting direct quotes from class readings that relate to these verses. Why leadership stands out as a central theme to the verses Mark 4:35 through 41 is because Jesus takes control of a life-threatening situation and leads through action and reflection. His ability to calm the storm demonstrates not only supernatural powers, but also emotional and spiritual steadiness. He guides by not only saving his disciples, but also challenging them to grow in faith. How this can be shown is through action and teaching. Jesus rebukes the power of nature and commands them to be still in the face of crisis. Jesus also uses this moment as a teaching opportunity, asking them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Allowing them to self-reflect and grow. Where leadership can be found in the verses is in verse 39 and 40. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?"
Hi, my name is Samantha DeLeon, and I'm going to show why, how, and where courageous vulnerability relates to Mark 4:35 through 41. Why? Courageous vulnerability is important because the disciples are willing to admit fear and turn to Jesus during times of desperation. Although their faith was lacking, their honesty opened the door for divine intervention. Vulnerability here was the catalyst for transformation. How? The disciples expressed genuine fear and called out for help. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Their willingness to voice these weaknesses showed how courage isn't the absence of fear, it's about choosing to cry out in spite of it. Jesus' response did not show rejection, rather it illustrated that vulnerability did not disqualify them from his grace. Where? Verse 38, the disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" This plea shows a moment of human fragility, making space for divine strength to show up.
My personal philosophy of healthcare is, my philosophy will be to lead others by example and to honor my patients through uncommon compassion. In the verses, Jesus shows compassion for his disciples by stopping the storm. He stops the storm even though in this moment the disciples are lacking faith. Instead of anger or punishment, he shows them uncommon compassion. In doing so, he is teaching them to be more faithful. Jesus also is an example of leadership. He leads his disciples by encouraging them to keep their faith in the face of danger and uncertainty. He is using this as a teaching moment rather than punishment or ridicule. This makes him the great and forgiving leader that he is. I will remember these verses when caring for my patients by showing them uncommon compassion and be an example to my coworkers through my actions.
My philosophy as a future cardiac sonographer is to serve with both skill and compassion, providing accurate, high-quality care while treating every patient with dignity, empathy, and respect, guided by faith and a commitment to lifelong learning. In the passage, Jesus shows divine power but also offers calm and reassurance to his fearful disciples. Just as he brings peace in the midst of an actual storm, my goal as a cardiac sonographer is to bring calm and peace to patients during their personal storms, moments of fear and uncertainty of illness. I aim to be a source of trust, stability, and compassion when others feel overwhelmed, just as Jesus did. Both my philosophy and this verse emphasize trust in God during trials and the importance of being a strong, caring presence when others are afraid.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to close by sharing how the storm calming story we just studied shaped my own philosophy of healthcare. When the disciples were battered by winds and waves, Jesus offered what they lacked: a steady, compassionate presence that turned fear into calm. Patients experience similar storms, uncertainty about diagnoses, pain, or the anxiety of a hospital stay. My POH is therefore simple: to create a safe and supportive space where every patient feels protected and receives clear, accessible care. Practically, this means I would follow these sets of 4 rules that I've laid out before you. Safety and vulnerability. I guard patients physically and emotionally when they're most exposed. Clarity and communication. Medical language can feel like a thunder, and I will translate it into manageable steps. Ownership of outcomes. Like Jesus taking responsibility for the boat's faith, I owe my part in each of the patient's journey. Lastly, number 4, loved through shared humanity. I will meet people with genuine empathy and not detached professionalism. Just as Jesus' words stilled the waves, my goal is to bring peace and trust along the journey to recovery, so that people's focus can shift from the fear of drowning to confidence in healing. And with this, I would like to thank you for listening to me. Thank you, and goodbye.
These are the 3 quotes from the assigned class readings that relate to the verses of Mark 4:35 through 41. Quote 1 states, "Where is my faith? Even deep down, right in, there is nothing but emptiness and darkness. My God, how painful is this unknown pain. It pains without ceasing. I have no faith." This quote is from the article, "Come Be My Light," and expresses how even Mother Teresa had struggles with her faith. She is someone that most people think is a representation of a perfect Christian. However, there is no such thing. She lacks faith in this moment of her life, as we all do at some point. This relates to Mark 4:35 through 41 because the disciples were also struggling with their faith in the moment of the storm, as Mother Teresa did during her time struggling with depression. Quote 2 states, "When you walk into the mission premises, well, they have good conditions there, but the men, they walk around, they seem lost." This quote is from the article Homeless in Poland and expresses how even though the men at the homeless shelter were taken care of physically, they seemed lost. This relates to Mark 4:35 through 41 because these men went from having no purpose to coming to work each day excited and motivated, as did the disciples when they found Jesus. Besides both stories having to do with a group of men and a boat, they relate due to how the leaders provide. Jesus provides safety and meeting to his men, as did Father Polenchny to the Polish boat workers. Although the disciples showed a moment of lapsed faith, Jesus showed consistency in providing for them by stopping the storm and teaching them to have faith, as did the Father by providing the men funds and meaning to accomplish something big and meaningful. Quote 3 states, "A king does not command his men's loyalty through fear nor purchase it with gold. He earns their love by sweat on his own back and the pains he endures for their sake." This quote from Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield explains how a king cannot fully be considered a leader to his people if he is not also putting in the labor, hardships, and pains. This connects to the verses because Jesus was on the boat with his disciples enduring the storm alongside them. He could have made the storm stop before it even started. However, he wanted to use this as a lesson to teach his disciples to show faith in all situations. Jesus being there alongside them, rather than back on the shore, shows that he was leading them through example.
The TED Talk by Brené Brown relates to the Bible verse Mark 4:35 through 41 through its themes of fear, faith, and vulnerability. From the verse, Jesus asks, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" This mirrors Brené's message that fear keeps us from connection, calm, and courage. Brené also explains that embracing vulnerability is key to true connection. When we embrace fear with faith instead of panic, we find peace. The TED Talk by Dan Ariely connects to Mark 4:35 through 41 in a unique but meaningful way. The link lies in how both explore human behavior under stress, our moral decisions, and the need to confront flawed assumptions with deeper trust, whether in ourselves or faith. Both the talk and the verse ask the ultimate question: do we trust what feels right, or do we seek a deeper truth even when it's uncomfortable? The podcast episode, He's Still Neutral, relates to Mark 4:35 through 41 in a symbolic and thematic way. Both stories explore peace amidst chaos, unexpected power, and a transformation of fear into calm. They show that even in moments of helplessness, a small act of trust or faith can shift an entire situation from feeling defeated to optimistic.